If you are looking to find out exactly what's happening with Dawn of War 4 right now, this is the right channel for you. And today we are taking a look at an interview that is actually worth digging into, because there's been a bit more information revealed from an interview today hosted by GameStar and Maurice Weber and Jan Theysen, who is the lead developer on Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 4. It's a game currently being developed by the German studio King Art Games, and from everything we've seen so far, we can already tell that there's genuine excitement around bringing this franchise back. Now, whilst this interview was conducted in German, well, I put my German hat on and managed to find out some really interesting details. You'll notice that the background footage, the B-roll footage if you will, is actually new trailer footage for the Adeptus Mechanicus. We have seen snippets of it before, but this seems to be the full-length feature. Now, Maurice Weber opened the interview, pointing out something that a lot of Warhammer fans would agree with, which is that Warhammer cinematic trailers are kind of a highlight in gaming. And honestly, he's not wrong. But beyond the trailers, what really matters is what direction the game is taking, and that is where things get interesting. The big focus of today's reveal and the trailer behind you is the inclusion of the Adeptus Mechanicus as the fourth faction in Dawn of War 4. Now, this isn't completely new information of course, but the interview does give us a much clearer idea of why they were chosen. Jan explains that after all the previous Dawn of War games and expansions, there actually weren't that many major factions left that hadn't already been explored. And among the remaining options, the Admech stood out as the most important and the most distinct. On top of that, the studio previously worked on Iron Harvest, which heavily features large mechs. So leaning into a faction full of machines and heavy technology probably just made a lot of sense for them. Now, when it comes to gameplay, the Adeptus Mechanicus aren't your typical tanky, slow-moving army. Instead, we are told that they are fast, they hit hard, and they specialize in ranged combat. But the trade-off is that they are fragile, basically classic glass cannons. So if you are used to something like Space Marines or Orks just soaking up damage, this is going to feel very different. But the real standout feature that was somewhat expanded upon for the Adeptus Mechanicus is something called the Noosphere Network. But before we do touch a lot more upon the Noosphere Network, I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel. You guys are absolutely legends. I do have a brief request though, completely free. If you're enjoying the videos so far on the channel, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and perhaps more importantly, if you are looking forward to the next coming updates for Dawn of War 4, well, you're gonna want to subscribe to the channel. But getting back to the Noosphere Network, we've been guided to think of it as something of like an in-game internet system that connects your buildings. The more you expand and link your base structures, especially defensive ones apparently, like turrets, the stronger your Noosphere Network becomes. So instead of just placing buildings wherever you want, you are actually incentivized to carefully design and optimize your base layout. And this of course ties into a bigger design goal. Maurice asks if this is part of a return to the roots of Dawn of War, where base building played a big role. I have to say, in the comments section of previous videos, a lot of you guys have asked whether Dawn of War 4 will be featuring, well, heavy base building mechanics, and in fact, a lot of you have been really requesting it, really wishing for Dawn of War 4 to have lots of base building. And essentially, on the question of whether this is gonna be a big base building feature for the Adeptus Mechanicus, well, Jan Theysen essentially says yes. But he doesn't just stop there. In fact, all factions will interact with base building, but with the Adeptus Mechanicus, it is especially central to how they play. The conversation then shifted to the storyline, and we get a small but very interesting tease. The trailer of course shows a tomb being explored, and unsurprisingly, the Necrons are back. Now, Jan doesn't of course reveal too much, but he does confirm that the Adeptus Mechanicus campaign is the second of the chronological storyline. What's more intriguing is that their campaign is directly responsible for the Necrons returning, but not in an absolutely obvious way. It doesn't seem just a case of, oops, we opened the wrong tomb. It appears that there is something more deliberate going on, which in turn, of course, suggests a more layered narrative than we might come to expect. Anyway, the interview then progresses to kind of wrap things up with a more personal question, essentially asking Jan Theysen what his favourite unit is for the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now what's pretty cool is that instead of just picking one unit, Jan actually goes with a combination, the Sicarian Ruststalkers paired with Rangers. The idea is pretty straightforward it seems, but effective. The Ruststalkers are said to be fast, stealthy melee units that can jump in and tie up enemies, while the Rangers hang back and deal ranged damage. Now this combination alone gives us probably what seems to be a relatively clear picture of how this faction is meant to feel. I imagine it's gonna be fast, tactical, and deadly if used correctly, but maybe unforgiving if you make some mistakes. It looks like their frontline melee units are fast, stealthy, tactical, and highly important to protect the perhaps more fragile backline of the Rangers. Now overall, this interview doesn't just confirm features, it gives a pretty solid sense of direction. It looks like the factions will indeed be very specialized, pretty asymmetric. There's clearly a renewed focus on base building, and a story that might have a bit more going on under the surface, which of course is exactly what we want. But now, this is where I want to hear from you guys. One of the greatest things about having a YouTube channel is that I get to read the lovely comments. Sometimes it's quite crazy ideas, but sometimes pretty nice ones. We know that the Necrons are back, but what do you guys think actually happened here? Any ideas about what the Adeptus Mechanicus did and, well, why they did it to cause the Necrons to return? And speaking of Adeptus Mechanicus, how do you feel about them being a faction in Dawn of War 4? Is it a good choice? Or were you hoping for another faction entirely? And finally, be completely honest, based on everything we've seen so far, are you actually excited for Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 4, or are you still a bit skeptical? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I try my best to read every comment. Now wait, before you go, I do just want to draw your attention to another video that I have published all about the Adeptus Mechanicus in Dawn of War 4. It's a bit of a deep dive into, well, everything we know. Units, some of the potential weapons that they equip themselves with, and much, much more. If you want to watch it, I'll leave it as an end card on your screen right now. Anyways, take care and see you next time.